David Hooper, Big Podcast Daily. Got some podcast news for you. Spotify has been opened to any podcast that is hosted on Libsyn. If you're hosted on Libsyn, you should have already received this information. If you have not gotten that information yet, you can just search for it on Facebook, on the Libsyn blog, or if you're comfortable with the Libsyn dashboard, you can add that destination from there. Is it worth changing to Libsyn if you want to be on Spotify? The answer is maybe. And we'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly of being on Spotify. I think it's very similar to being on iHeart. The good news about being on Spotify is that it will impress your advertisers. A lot of people know what Spotify is. And if you say, hey, my podcast is available on Spotify, that might help you to get more advertisers, more money from those advertisers. It's also great if you want to get new listeners who might not know a lot about podcasting. A lot of people have the Spotify service. If you tell them to search for your podcast via Spotify, they've already got the software loaded on their phones, on their desktops. They already know how Spotify works. They know the interface. They know how to use it. They simply search for your podcast, and they will be able to hear it. So this is great if you're dealing with a demographic, a segment of the population, a segment of the market that's already familiar with Spotify, is likely to have it, and you want to reach those people via your podcast. Here's the downside. And I don't know that it's really a downside. It's more neutral because it's not costing you any extra money to get on Spotify. You will probably not get a lot of new listeners randomly from people who find you on Spotify. The majority of people on Spotify, just like the majority of people who use SoundCloud, want to listen to music. They are not looking for talk content, which is what most podcasts are. It doesn't hurt you to be there. Again, very impressive to advertisers. Also, a very easy way for people to find you, but it's not necessarily something that's going to take your podcast over the top, get you thousands of more downloads every month. Maybe. Try it and see. Reach out to me at David Hooper on Twitter. Let me know how Spotify is working for your podcast. And if you want more tips, more thoughts on situations like these, more distribution methods, and of course, how to become a more compelling host and create a better podcast, go to Apple Podcasts. Search for Big Podcast Daily. Hit the subscribe button. Not on Spotify because this podcast is not hosted on Libsyn, but you can get it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and all major podcast platforms, with the exception of Spotify. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next episode.